you ever drive past a new building going up and just wonder, what does something like that actually cost to build? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the construction industry and find out what's really hiding inside that final price tag. Yeah, that's the big question, right? What's the real cost? Because I'll tell you right now, the answer is way more complex and honestly, way more fascinating than you probably think. It's definitely not as simple as just adding up the price of wood and nails. All right, to really get this, let's look at a number that it tells the whole story. You see on the left, a skilled worker's paycheck might say $25 an hour. Seems decent, right? But then you look to the right. The actual cost of that worker to the project, it's almost double that. We're talking $48, maybe even more. So where did that other $23 go? That's exactly what we're going to figure out. Okay, to understand where that money disappears, you've got to break down how these projects are priced. It really all comes down to three main pillars of what's called direct cost. You've got your materials, your labor, and then something called plant, which is just a fancy industry term for all the heavy equipment, the cranes and bulldozers and all that. So let's tackle that first pillar, materials. This should be the easy one, right? You need 100 feet of pipe, you buy 100 feet of pipe. Simple. Well, no. Here's one of the first big secrets of construction estimating. You always, and I mean always, have to buy more stuff than you're actually going to see in the finished building. And this introduces two really important ideas, net versus gross. The net quantity is what you'd think it is. It's the exact amount that physically ends up in the structure, the exact square footage of drywall on the walls. But the gross quantity, that's the total amount you actually have to click buy on. And when estimators are pricing a job, they have to use that bigger gross number. So what explains that difference between what you use and what you buy? It comes down to one word, a word that project managers live and breathe: wastage. And listen, this isn't about people being sloppy or careless. It's a calculated, totally unavoidable part of building anything. Because wastage isn't just one thing. It's a bunch of different things all rolled into one. For example, think about standard sizes. You can't just go buy 7.3 feet of a 2x4. You have to buy the whole 8-foot piece. That's waste. Or what about expected loss? The concrete that gets stuck inside the mixer truck? That's waste too. Then there's stuff you need for assembly, like overlapping shingles on a roof. And finally, you have to plan for the stuff you just can't control. Things getting damaged on site, maybe theft, or a big storm rolling through. It all adds up. All right, pillar number 2. And honestly, this is usually the most complicated one. Labor. And this is going to take us right back to our original mystery, that worker making $25 an hour but costing the project closer to $50. Let's break down exactly how that happens. See, that base wage is just the foundation. On top of that, you start stacking all these other costs, and the industry calls this whole stack the burden. So you add things the government requires like Social Security and unemployment taxes. Then you add workers' comp insurance. Then you pile on the benefits. We're talking health insurance, retirement plans, paid vacation. And on top of all that, the company has to add a cut for its own overhead and profit. All of a sudden, that base wage looks like a pretty small part of the total cost, doesn't it? Let's put some real numbers to this to see how fast it adds up. Say a worker earns $1,000 in a week. Just for the legally required stuff, taxes and insurance, the employer has to shell out an extra $167.50. That's nearly 17% more. And remember, we haven't even gotten to health insurance or the company's own costs or profit yet. Crazy, right? Okay, so you'd think, all right, we've calculated this fully burdened labor rate. We're done. Problem solved. But not even close. Because the biggest, wildest variable when it comes to labor costs isn't actually the money. It's productivity. It's all about how much work a person can actually get done in one of those very expensive hours. And this is what keeps estimators up at night, trying to predict productivity, because everything affects it. You've got job factors like, is it 100 degrees out, or is the site a muddy mess that's hard to get around in? That'll slow things down. But then you have labor factors. Is the crew super experienced and well supervised? They might fly through the work. You get this calculation wrong even by a little bit, and it can have a huge, huge impact on the final price tag. Which brings us to our third and final pillar of direct cost, the plant. Again, that's all the machinery, the big stuff, the small stuff, everything you need to actually do the job, from a gigantic crane all the way down to a simple power drum. And these costs are usually split into 3 buckets. First, you've got your major equipment, the big excavators, the stuff a company either owns or rents for a long time.
Second, you've got equipment you just hire for a specific task, maybe for a day or two. And third, you have all the little things, the small tools, the drill bits, saw blades, all the consumables. It's way too much work to track every single one, so estimators will often just add a small percentage, like, say, 6% on top of the labor cost to cover it all. Okay, so there we have it. Our three pillars: material, labor, and plant. Now, the whole point of all this, the grand finale, is to combine everything we've talked about to create one single incredibly important number: the net unit rate. This is the true all-in cost to do one single thing.
And to make this super clear, let's build one of these unit rates right now, using an example from our source. We are going to figure out the exact price for one very specific task: excavating one single cubic meter of soil. First up, material. Now, for this job, the material isn't something that stays in the ground. It's the diesel fuel that powers the excavator. And for this 1 cubic meter of digging, that fuel cost comes out to £5 and 21 pence. Okay, next piece of the puzzle, labor. And this is the big one. This is the fully burdened, all-in cost for the excavator operator plus a ground worker for the exact amount of time it takes to do this one little job. That adds a whopping £49 and 50 pence to our total. And finally, we've got to account for the machine itself, the plant. We add in the cost of hiring that 5-ton excavator for just the little slice of time it's needed for this one task, and that tacks on another £6. So you add it all together: the fuel, the fully burdened labor, the machine rental, and what do you get? The true direct cost, the net unit rate, to dig up just 1 cubic meter of soil is £60 and 71 pence. That's the number. And this is the number the contractor actually puts into their bid. This 6071 covers all the direct costs of just getting the work done. Now, from there, they'll add on their company-wide overhead and, of course, their profit. But imagine, every single task on a giant project gets broken down with this exact same mind-boggling level of detail. So there you have it. We've totally deconstructed the price tag. We've seen how all these hidden factors, wastage, labor burden, productivity, equipment costs, are all hiding behind what seems like a simple number. I guarantee the next time you walk past a construction site, you'll see it differently. You'll know that every brick, every worker, every machine has this incredibly complex story of cost behind it. So my question to you is, how does knowing all this change the way you see the buildings popping up all around you?